Hello. Shouldn't there be 12? No? Shouldn't there be 12 people? Huh? I'm looking. Pratik, Zolo 2, RKV 3, Nikhil 4, Download 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think, yeah. No, no, like discounting all three of us, Abhi, me, and Ashish. Yeah, like I'm just looking at the list which you created with the starting time and all. Oh, acha, acha, acha. Got it. Okay. because Azim beach thing is thicker. All right. Hey Ashish, welcome. Welcome everyone to this second part two of this race. I hope like it's going to be amazing. So what do you think, Ashish? Ashish, are you there? No, okay. So I think like we have already seen part one, like how amazing it is and stuff like that. So and now what we have done is like we have actually taken down the gap between all these races, and we are sending them out like accordingly. So first to go out is Pratik Benia, and he has done like an amazing race like last time. You have seen that, and immediately after 45 seconds, like we have Solo going out, and then immediately followed by that, like we have like RKV. So he's actually going out. So we have actually seen like an excellent battle between Pratik and RKV, different driving styles, different strategy, and everything. So it's going to be amazing this time. I can't wait. Like there was a huge slide for RKV in the Dunlop turn. That's not sure. Okay, he's getting his bearings. I mean, I think like tires are cold and stuff like that, so he will actually get the hang of it pretty soon, and it should be fine. And Nikhil started after RKV. He's going after, yeah, like after 12 seconds or something. And then we have Group 3, the leader of Group 3, Dan Lord, who is actually starting with a beautiful livery. Amazing. He started in the back, like in the part one. And now we can, like, he's actually in the front. And pretty soon, I think, like, we'll be able to see, like, a great battle between Dan Lord and Tegis 1, Tegis 1B. He was one of the fastest in our, in the qualifying lap. I think like he actually I think like, yeah, he did like a 3 minute 56.4. He was quick, and I'm sure like, he will actually catch up to Danish pretty soon. Danish being like Dan Lord. And now we have like Tegus one. He has actually started. He just crossed the start line, and now we have like Cape Crusader just behind him, and Fierce B again, like yeah, he's actually starting, and now comes Tegis one, like as you know, like we had like a disconnect and stuff like that, so he's actually starting, and again like now Wildest Monk, like part one, like you didn't actually see him, amazing driver. I mean, like he's quick, and he'll be hoping to catch up, like, but before this race, like he was actually telling us that just for fun, like he's not expecting anything, but he's quick. We all know that, so he's going to. I think like who's the last Group One driver? He's actually going to fight with him pretty soon. Like we have like 2 hours of racing, and then we have like Fierce B, which we have talked about, and Fun Anywhere. Again, he's actually starting um, last, and last we have like Shamim. Shamim is a bit slower, I think. He had like a confusion last time, like in part one. But he's a quick driver, so I mean, like he and Fun Anywhere, like we'll be able to see a battle pretty soon. Let's hope like how it goes, and let's hope like no one disconnects. That has been like a major issue with this game, and hopefully in GD7 like we'll not have all these issues. And the good thing is like we didn't have any glitches or anything like that, and the race started, like the part two started smooth. Like we had like Abhi taking care of who will start when and stuff like that. He organized it pretty well. So we are actually seeing like like people are actually far apart. from each other. But hopefully we'll actually see a couple of battles going on pretty soon. Uh, so we see a gap between Pratik. Like Pratik is like what, like 24 seconds ahead of Zolo, Zolo and RKV is behind Zolo, like 13 seconds below, 13.8 seconds below Zolo, behind Zolo. And we have like RKV. I don't know from where he actually got this 2.2 second penalty. So this track, as we spoke, like as we talked like last time, is the 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 limits, like the track limits are like very strictly monitored. I mean, like I've actually seen the real like 24-hour racing over here, and it's stricter than that. Like the track which we have in GT4 is like the race limit is pretty stricter. I'm not sure like why oh yeah, okay, RKV is actually bled out all his penalties over there in the first corner in the Mulsanne straight, and now he's off. Still he got actually got a purple sector. I'm not sure. Like okay, that's cool. I mean, he was like 18 seconds behind Zolo. Now it has come down to 16.2, and pretty soon I think like he might actually catch Zolo. And let's see like how it goes. Like RKV has to get into a kind of a groove, and again he actually got like a 1 second penalty. That's pretty sure like he can bleed it out before the next corner or the couple of next corners. So next, let's actually see like what's happening with the Dan Lord and how far he's ahead. Oh, I'm not sure. Oh, okay. Dan Lord, 23 seconds and 18 seconds. Like he's well ahead of the next Group 3 car. By Tegis one. Tegis one is running like a, I think like a, yeah, like kind of a default livery. I think. I'm not sure. It looks like that, like for this Mercedes. And let's see like how that goes. As we spoke last time, like it's all being consistent without making any errors and stuff like that. So just need to make sure like the track limits are all set and so that's like a fixed state. And if you actually stop like or slow down for penalty, that is going to take a long time. So just make sure like within, you do not have to be like really quick or anything, just need to be consistent and stuff like that. And since people are like quite apart, like I don't think like no need to worry about any battle or anything like that. Just be consistent, follow, just like be in the racing line, and that should be good enough. Let's see, like, okay, who's at the end? Shamim, let's see. Oh, I do not know like how far uh Shamim is from the next uh G1 racer who is actually fun anywhere. Let's see. Okay, he's not that behind, I think. Shamim, if I'm not wrong. If I'm not wrong, he's not that behind. I mean, like I think like Shamim is also in the Mulsanne Straight, and we have Fun Anywhere also, like just cross the Mulsanne Straight and coming. So pretty soon, like Shamim will be close to Fun Anywhere, and I think like they had like a 1 minute gap or something in between, and it is pretty great. Like Shamim could actually cover that pretty soon. And
Yes,
then,
Zolo has also a penalty.
oh, is he?
Yeah, yeah.
Hey there, everyone. This is Abhishek. So we're facing a lot of issues with OBS stream today. I'm just hoping that the one that you see right now is actually properly visible. So we had to terminate the connection between Shibi and Ashish on the commentary teams. I'm really not sure when we'll get those guys back. But this is going to be a very, very interesting race. Very interesting race. Uh, so the way we left it at the end of the last race, we had noted on the times for everyone on the track position, and all the guys have been released based on the time that these guys had the difference of. So yeah, right now we are racing in full swing. Pratik Penya is obviously the leader, about 24 seconds ahead of Zolo. Uh, RKB is about 17 seconds behind Zolo, but I think the release time on RKB was a little higher, so I think we'll have to adjust for that. And Nikhil is about 21 seconds behind RKB as well. The Wildest Monk is taking part. So he's actually probably just going to be running a lonely race by himself. He's not going to be participating in the actual race positions himself. Uh, Dan Lord in the Group 3 category is still leading with Fun Anywhere in the Group 1 category, about 33 seconds behind him. So I expect Fun Anywhere to go ahead and overtake Dan Lord in about 1 time. Tegiswan, who was actually leading the Group 3 race the last time around, is about 45 seconds behind Dan Lord, so he has a lot to catch up. And same goes for Cape Crusader and Fierce B as well. And Shami, who I think had a very interesting issue in terms of a little bit of a miscommunication between himself and the race stewards as well. So he actually went into the pits for a planned break, and that was now it was supposed to be. So he actually lost out on a lot of time. But Shami has been a good sport in coming back to the lobby to try and race. Just to get through this, just to say that yeah, I did it and have a little fun along the way. But this man, Pratik Penya, is leading the charge right now. Uh, and you can see he's trying to overtake Tegiswan on the straight as well. Um, so we'll just cycle through everyone. Let us look at their tire information as well. Zolo is on the racing softs. Pratik Penya is on the racing softs as well. Remember, these guys have to use the racing softs and the racing hards uh, and the racing mediums as well. So three tire choices on offer, and they have to mandatorily use all the three compounds. So they had a free choice of tire start, and these guys have gone ahead and chosen the tire that they wanted to. I think Pratik Penya just dived straight back into the pits and changed back to the softer tires. Uh, RKB has a little bit of a penalty, and he's about 40 seconds behind Pratik Penya, but I think that time is going to come down anyway. So Nikhil, uh, who was actually supposed to be a good runner for this race, Penya and Zolo have done so far. Uh, the Wildest Monk, again, he's having a race by himself, just enjoying himself out there. Fun Anywhere, again, the same thing. Tegiswan is right there, but I think he's closing the gap to Dan Lord. So do not discount Tegiswan right now. Cape Crusader about 7 seconds behind Tegiswan. So these guys have a lot to do when it comes to actually racing. So we'll just take a look at everyone. We'll keep checking. We'll keep checking and seeing what these guys are up to. And Shami again, just having a race by himself. I'm sure that there are a lot of time issues that are going to crop up. I'm sorry about that. Crop up at the end of the race. So we'll just see how that happens. And let's just stay with RKB because I think he's the one who's going to be pushing right now. So I'll just let you enjoy the Gran Turismo way of presenting everything, and I'll just take myself out of that so you can actually hear the cars going at full speed. Okay, so coming back to the positional shifts again. RKV was actually released about 7 or 8 seconds later than what he should have been. So he will see that time taken off at the end of the race. Running on the racing soft tires, I think he has a wonderful opportunity to actually catch up to Zolo, and I think that gap has been coming down. But Pratik Benya has maintained a staggering lead at the front with about 20 seconds between him and Zolo. Uh, Again, the race is between RKV and Zolo for that second position. But coming back to the Group 3 guys, Dan Lord is still leading with Tegiswan about 35 seconds behind him. So he has brought the gap down from 45 to 35, so about a 10-second gain. He still has about 1 hour 40 minutes remaining to see if he can go ahead and catch up to Dan Lord. But even if he doesn't, he's still in second position because Azim Clark, who was running second, could not make it to the final race. Um, Cape Crusader with about 10 seconds of a gap between him and Tegiswan. These guys have a lot to run right now. And almost everyone that I can see out on track is on the racing soft tires. So this is going to be an interesting because all the mandatory tire choices that these guys had has all disappeared. So they will have to run on the fastest compound, which is the softs right now. And I'm not able to change my camera view, so we'll actually go out and come back into spectate mode and see if we can. Yes, we can. We can do that now. So let's just stay on board Dan Lord and look at that gap between Dan Lord and Tegiswan at about 35 seconds. We'll just see what kind of speed Tegiswan is carrying. I mean, the gap is slowly coming down, but it's not coming down to the extent that he would want. So it would be interesting to see if Tegiswan can actually go back and take first position. So this is for the Group 3 class, and the Group 1 class with Pratik Benya about 25-second gap. I think that has come down from 27 to 25, so about 2 seconds. But Pratik is constantly, even in the last race, he was constantly managing his fuel. So that is going to be an interesting choice for the other guys as well, because though they are while they are going flat out, Pratik is constantly managing his fuel and tires, and it's going to give him an advantage towards the end of the race as well. Zolo is staying constant, but RKV is quickly catching up to Zolo. He has the fastest time on the board right now as well, about 3 minute 21 seconds. So we'll just see if RKV can actually upset the position that Zolo has, which I think he will be able to pretty easily. But so we'll just stay with RKV for some time. Let's see if we can go on board RKV and see if we can tone down the noise just a little bit, so you guys can actually hear everything on the stream. Uh, so yeah, let's just stay on board RKV. Look at his steering inputs and everything while I get in touch with the drivers on Discord just to let them know about the time that has passed and how much time is remaining. And you can see RKV is setting purple sectors. He still has that about 2.5 second penalty, which he has to serve either throughout the entire lap or before the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight, also known as the PlayStation chicane. So yeah, this is RKV's race. He can definitely take that second position. He's catching up to Zolo fairly quickly. The gap, which was about 8 seconds, is now down to just 6. But Pratik Benya, again, he is constantly maintaining that gap. Uh, at the back of the field, Shami, because of the whole fiasco with the break that he took And I think that was an issue where even the stewards, before we could get in touch with Shami, before we could realize what was actually happening, Shami was um, already off into the pits, and he had gone out to attend a nature call, I should say. Drink some water, get some rest. So yeah, he's plumb dead last. He's just going to be having a race of his own. But again, the Group Three guys, it's getting a little interesting because the difference between Fiersby and Cape Crusader, which was about I think about 10 seconds at the start, which I think Cape Crusader made a mistake somewhere, is now down to about 3 seconds. And Fiersby and Tegiswan, that gap has remained constant, about between 8 to 12 seconds. So these guys are going at it. Tegiswan right now running second in the Group 3 category with about 49 seconds behind Danlord. Uh, so yeah, I think the gap had come down to Danlord, but it's going to come down again because Danlord has to go out and go into the pits again, get his tires changed and get some fuel also. But Danlord is clearly poised in first position. Tegiswan in second for the Group 3 class. So we'll just stay with Tegiswan for now as Danlord actually jumps into the pits. So the 49-second time difference, I think, will come down to about 20 odd seconds. And if you see some choppy feed on the stream, I do apologize to all the viewers. The OBS stream package that I've been using is giving a lot of issues today. We actually had to disconnect our co-commentators, Ashish and Shibi, because OBS was just not playing nice with the internal comms that we had. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because I cannot actually get them to join back in, but I at least they are still in the lobby. They are enjoying everything that's happening right alongside me because this is turning out to be an interesting one. Tegiswan was actually leading the first race, got disconnected, so he had to start 45 seconds after the last car had left. So that put a dent in the time. But look at that. The gap is now it's about 23 seconds now, which is fairly consistent. He's gaining a lot of time, Tegiswan, because he's very fast on this track. So Danlord is for now. I think Danlord is comfortably poised, but he knows that Tegiswan will come back, will be right on his tail towards the end of this race. As I say that, Fiersby jumps into the pits, so Cape Crusader goes up one place, and I think no, he doesn't. So he just comes out. Okay, he just came out in front of Fiersby. So I think Fiersby will now get stuck between traffic. And as I say that, he loses his braking on, and he didn't change his tires, so he's still on his worn-out tires. Loses the braking, cuts the Dunlop corner, then comes back out on the track again. And this is where it gets interesting because now with all the dirt on his tires, he's obviously going to be slower than usual, and taking those corners is not going to be as easy for him. And while I say that, he is going to get lapped by the Group 1 car. I think that's Pratik Pena, or I think that's Nikhil. I'm not too sure. Yeah. So Nikhil, RKV, Zolo, and Pratik Pena, the top guys are in the Group 1 class, with the wildest, who is a surprise entry. But his race position is not going to be considered because he did not take part in the first race. So essentially, if we remove the wildest one, that leaves us with Fun Anywhere. Um, so yeah, this is turning out to be an interesting race for a lot of people, especially RKV, because I know he has the pace to go out and overtake Solo. And look at that, the gap is now down to 3.8 seconds between Solo and RKV, which at some point was about 8 seconds in the last lap. So yeah, RKV is quickly catching up to Solo, and with just a 3 second gap between them, and the way RKV has been setting purple sectors, I think he should be able to catch him by the end of this lap. But again, this guy, Pratik Pena, he's just a class apart. In front of everyone, just having a race by himself, enjoying himself. And yeah, he's looking poised to win this until unless there's something really bad that happens with this connection. Um, Absolutely. So let's stay with Pratik Pena. Actually, let's stay with RKV because he's about 2.5 seconds behind Zolo. Let's see if we can go on board RKV. Maybe not with the easier version, but yeah, let's stay on the chase cam with RKV while he races or tries to catch up to Solo. Look at that gap. From 2.5 seconds is now down to just 2 seconds, is now down to 1.9 seconds. So I think by the end of the Mulsanne straight, he's going to be like right at the tail of Solo as well. Um, yeah, let's take a look at all of that, and I will talk to the drivers in the background as well. Hello, viewers. Just to give you a quick update, so RKB has gone into the pits to get a new set of tires and fuel. Solo, I think he's going to go into the pits after this lap, and it's going to be interesting when he comes out because I think RKB would be able to jump him. The undercut is very strong on these cars and the softer compound of tires that these guys are using. So just to give you a quick recap of what's going on, Pratik Benya is still about 7 seconds in front of Solo, comfortable first position with one category. RKB is about 30 seconds behind Solo right now. You'll see that time coming down because he's on a fresh set of tires. And by the time Solo hits, I think RKB should be able to jump him. Nikhil, about a minute behind RKB, running fourth in the Group 1 category. The Wildest Monk, he is racing, but he will have no impact on any position. So the Wildest Monk will not be considered for any positions. Fun Anywhere about a minute behind him. Dan Lord is leading the Group 3 category with Tegi Swan 16 seconds behind him in second position. Just a reminder that Tegi Swan was actually leading the Group 3 class in the last race, but he got disconnected, so he had to start after everyone had left the starting grid. And in terms of leaving everyone, we had noted down the time difference between these guys during the start of the race, during the end of the previous race. So they were directed by the stewards to leave accordingly. So if there was a 20-second gap, if there was a 20-second gap between Pratik Benya and Solo, so they will 10 seconds after each other. Karan, I'm just letting you know Just tell me if the volume is okay right now because I just increased the slider for you guys. Uh, I personally felt that the volume was too high, but if you guys can't hear it, then we'll just try and see how much farther we can take it. But again, coming back to RKV because these guys are going to be finishing the lap. Look at that, he just ate about 1 second of the lead that Zolo had. So I think by the time Zolo comes out of the pits, RKV should be able to jump him. All right, folks, just another gentle update. So, Solo, I think he went into the pits and did not change his tires. So he is still maintaining that 5 second gap between himself and RKV. But I think that was the wrong choice because RKV with his pace is going to catch up to Solo very very soon. Along with that, fresh set of tires and a lot of fuel that he has used as well. So his car is going to be a little bit lighter, a little bit more faster. And just look at that time difference between himself and Zolo. It's constantly falling down. But I think Zolo has played a trick on RKV because I think RKV must have thought that he's going to jump Zolo in the pits, which obviously did not happen. So yeah, these are some mind games going on between these guys right now. Remember, they are free to use any tire compound that they want to. So if they don't wish to change tires, they can do so as well. So again, RKV and Solo, just a 5 second gap between these guys, but in corners, especially in the final sector, I think Solo is going to lose out a lot of time. So we'll just stay with RKV, and I think he should be able to catch Solo towards the end of the next lap as well, because all the other positions I think are properly set right now. There's not many positional shifts happening. Dan Lord is still leading the Group 3 class. Teggy Swan is right behind him, but with about 20-second gap between these guys. So yeah, we'll just stay on with RKV. The gap between RKV and Zolo constantly falling, and RKV is chasing that second position. That in the Group 1 category, the final place, the final prize pool position as well. So this is going to be an interesting one. Obviously, RKV has an extra 10 seconds in the bank. so that will be deducted from his race time at the end. So I think as things stand, he is obviously ahead of Zolo right now. But obviously, he would really want to get that track position as well. So that gap between RKB and Zolo, which was about 5 seconds, just about a minute ago, is now about 3.2 seconds. So yeah, the last sector with the corners and the chicanes, I think RKB is doing pretty well. So let's just stay with RKB. I'll go back into the background, talk to the drivers, give them some instructions because my commentary team is not here today. So I'm going to be doing everything. So I'll be talking to the drivers, giving them some instructions by the time you guys just enjoy the stream. All right, folks. So RKV is now just about a second behind Solo. Let's actually jump on board RKV. Or actually not on board. Maybe just chase him through the chase cam. I think he should be able to overtake Solo in the last sector with the fresh set of tires that he has. And look at that. The gap is significantly coming down. Zolo went into the pits, did not change his tires. So obviously he's going to be slow in these sectors as well. Let's just stay with RKB when he makes the move on Solo. I think it will happen at the probably at the Ford chicane, if not on the Dunlop curve itself. And look at that, RKB with that added benefit of the slipstream, just trying to see if he can overtake. But again, a Group 3 car in front of these guys coming into the picture as well. So this is going to be making things a little bit more interesting. I think that's the Group 3 car of Tegiswan. He can maintain position if he really wants to. The Group 1 cars have to go around him, which I think these guys manage effortlessly. But Solo is not making it easy for RKB. He's chasing him, and I think he should be able to get that overtake done on the Mulsanne straight itself. Look at that, Solo gets a very, very bad exit. He has such worse condition of tires, and even look at that, the wear on those tires is incredible right now. And he knows RKB is right there. Look at that, RKB making the move, going for the overtake, and Zolo does not fight him. He knows that RKB is quicker. RKB has been quicker since the very start of the race as well. So Zolo would probably just want to stay behind RKB and see if these guys can actually catch up to Pratik Benya. Just to remind you, RKB has 10 seconds in the bank. So any time differences that you see between him and other people is going to change. So, for example, the gap between him and Pratik Benya for 25 seconds will come down to 15 seconds at the end when his race time is finally calculated. But coming back to Pratik Benya, he actually just went into the pit. So I think the pit stop uh, actually ate into his lead as well. But Pratik has been managing his tires and his fuel diligently, even in the first race, even on this one. And he's just so far ahead of the pack right now. Um, 24 seconds between himself and RKV. And I think if RKV can start to push and take that race position from Pratik Benya, or at least stay 10 seconds behind him, he should be able to get that first position as well. Let's take a few bit of information out of the screen, and just look at these guys. Yeah, RKV has opened up a 1.7 second gap between himself and Zolo, so he does not have to fear the slipstream anymore. His next target is going to be Pratik Benya, so he has about an hour left to get rid of that 24-second 24-second time difference between himself and Pratik Benya. And I think he should considering the fact that he's lapping at consistently about 321s. Let's actually look at the lap times as well. So RKV is consistently doing about 320s with the occasional couple of seconds extra here and there. And Pratik Benya has been doing 325, so about 2 seconds a lap on an average faster than Pratik. And you can actually see that in the time difference as well. When we started talking about this, Pratik was about 25 seconds ahead of RKV, and now the gap is down to 23. So RKV is obviously faster, much faster than Pratik Benya right now. And the way Pratik is managing his fuel and tires, I think it's going to come down to the very end of this race. So stay tuned. This is going to be an action-packed one for all of our viewers. What you guys are looking at right now is the Group 3 category leader, Dan Lord. And I think that's a surprising and kind of like a lucky position for him as well, because in the last race, Tegiswan and RKV were so far ahead in front of him. Tegiswan obviously disconnected, but Tegiswan and Azim were so far ahead of him. Tegiswan disconnected at about one hour mark, and Azim, he actually had to serve a stop and go penalty directed by the steward, so he lost a lot of positions in doing that. Right now, Tegiswan is about 34 seconds behind Dan Lord. But Dan Lord is going to go into the pits right now, and I think that gap is going to come down. But again, the pit stop difference between these two guys is about a half a tank of fuel. So Tegiswan, if he gets that position, I think he has to defend. He has to make Dan Lord work that position, see if you can maybe get Dan Lord to burn some more fuel, because towards the end of the race is where all these pit stops and everything come into play, and the position shifts will happen. So we'll stay on board. We'll keep taking a look at the Group 1 guys as well, and the Group 3 guys as well, because these are two separate races happening out on the same track. Right now, you're looking at Tegiswan with about 33 seconds between himself and Dan Lord. And I think Dan Lord will go into the pits at the end of this sector. His fuel bar is blinking red. So we'll just stay with Dan Lord, take a look at what he's doing, and I'll be back with you shortly. right, so Dan Lord is now jumping into the pits. Let's go back to Tegiswan because he is almost on the last sector. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because Dan Lord has to fill up an entire tank of fuel. Obviously, Tegiswan has used a lot of his fuel from the last pit stop. I think towards the end of the race, all of these differences between the pit stop timings for these guys will come into play. But as things stand, Dan Lord is back out again. So he just changed his tires. He did not fill up. I am not too sure what Dan Lord is doing right now because I think he made a mistake, and if he really made that mistake, I think it's going to cost him dearly on this one because he has just not filled up fuel at all. So all the entire gap that he had to Tegiswan is obviously going to go away once he goes back into the pits at the end of probably this lap. So the entire advantage, the position advantage that he had based on his pit stops is now gone. It looks like Dan Lord, that mistake I think has cost Dan Lord first position in this race. That is for sure. And Tegiswan, I think he'll be confused right now on how Dan Lord came out 18th side of him, but once he sees him go into the pits again, I think he'll realize what happened. Yeah, Dan Lord, that mistake is going to cost him first position for sure, and he has to be very, very cautious now because it doesn't look like he has a lot of fuel. So I'm not really sure if he can actually drive at full pace. The slipstream from the Group 1 guys might give him some benefit. But again, this is going to be a tough one. Look at that, his fuel bar flashing red. That was a huge mistake from Dan Lord for not filling up fuel. I'm not really sure what happened there. But again, Tegiswan, I think he's the one who's going to benefit from all of this. The entire advantage that Dan Lord had over him in terms of the extra amount of pit stop and the fuel that he had has now gone away. So I think this one is now looking at first position in the Group 3 class. This is getting exciting now because people are starting to make mistakes, and we are only 50 minutes into the race. So this is going to be an interesting one, and I think this is going to go right down to the wire. Let's go back to the Group 1 guys, if I can. RKV has brought the gap down to Pratik Benya to just 16 seconds. Remember, RKV has a 10-second time deficit from the steward. So at the end of the race, 10 seconds will be subtracted from his total race time. So as things stand, essentially he is about 6 seconds behind Pratik Benya, who still has a lot of fuel to go. So I think the pit stop strategy for these guys is going to come into play towards the end of the race because Pratik is managing his fuel brilliantly all the time, and he's getting into the pits, not changing his tires, just getting fuel and driving out for another session with the same compound of tires. And RKV, he jumps into the pits, gets a new set of tires. He loses about 5-6 odd seconds there, but I think he easily makes up every lap that he runs. Look at that, he's consistently doing 322s, 320. He just set a fastest lap on the last one, and Pratik Benya is at least 3 seconds on an average slower than him per lap. Look at that gap is now down to 14 seconds. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one because while Pratik Benya has the pit stop advantage, his tires are really worn out, and RKV has that 10-second time difference as well. So effectively, right now, the gap between Pratik Benya and RKV is about 4.9 seconds. We'll have to wait until the end of the race to see what the pit stops actually come to once these guys go ahead and fill up fuel for the last time. We'll just stay with these guys, look at everything that's happening. I'll keep jumping in, I'll keep talking, but essentially I'll let the viewers enjoy the stream for now. So coming back to the Group 3 guys, Dan Lord um, has gone into the pits, gets a full tank of fuel, and he's still about 13 seconds in front of Tegiswan. But Tegiswan has now got a full tank of fuel as well. So I think he called Dan Lord's mistake, and he went into the pits as well just to get a full set. So that makes these guys equal in terms of their pit strategies. But Tegiswan obviously has those worn set of tires. I think it's going to be difficult for him to maintain that pace. But we all know he has the pace, and look at that. He's eating those that time difference between himself and Dan Lord. So I think uh, now that these guys are equal on their pit strategies, it's just a matter of skill. It's just a matter of how fast you can drive, so that you can go ahead and overtake guy in front. So we'll just keep looking at the other guys as well. I mean, Fearsby about 41 seconds behind Tegiswan. Cape Crusader about 37 seconds behind Fearsby, getting overtaken by RKV right there. And RKV, this is where the action is, because RKV has brought the gap down to Pratik Benya to 12 seconds. Remember, he has a 10-second advantage right now, so effectively that gap is now 2.7 seconds. But Pratik Benya, who's constantly managing his fuel, I think he's in a much better position fuel-wise. He has about half a tank of fuel, while RKV, I think he has to come into the pits now, probably at the end of this lap, or probably at yeah, I think he'll probably have to do it at the end of this lap, because you don't want your fuel to run out on this track. Otherwise, you'll be stuck in straight. And you'll have to drive at 60 kilometers per hour for the entirety of the lap, which is just going to take the race completely away from you. So yeah, the pit stop difference between Pratik Benya and RKV, I think uh, it's cascading the fact that RKV is actually much faster than Pratik right now. But don't discount Pratik Benya. He's constantly managing his tires and fuel. He knows this is a long race. This is not a short sprint. So he already has a plan in his mind. He's just putting that into execution. So the first two positions for the Group 1 category is a nice duel between RKV and Pratik Benya. And just a few laps ago, I think RKV was had just overtaken Zolo, and look at that, he's about 21 seconds in front of him now. Uh, let's cycle through the field once, enjoy the stream, and I'll just talk to the drivers, let them know that the 1 hour mark is coming up. everyone. So just a quick update. Tegiswan is now about 9 seconds behind Danlord. Uh, but I think he's using a little bit more fuel. I think Danlord is managing his fuel quite effectively. And on the other end of the spectrum, we're looking at Pratik Benya about 17 seconds ahead of RKV. And now the pit pit gap difference that these guys had is exactly the same. So from now on, there's no pit stop advantage that Pratik Benya has. I think he realized that I think he realized that RKV is way too quick on this track. So instead of managing his fuel, I think he has gone and filled up, and he's just going to try and extract the most out of this car as well. Uh, while I was actually off air, Shami went ahead and unlapped himself on the wildest monk and gave him a little taunt on the group chat as well. I think that's going to be it's not going to feel good for the wildest monk. But yeah, Shami has been an absolute sport in actually joining this race and trying to complete this. He's just having a race by himself, having fun, setting his own personal targets, trying to beat them. Right now, he's about 6 seconds. If I'm looking at this correctly, yeah, about 6 seconds behind Pratik Benya. So he's not there in terms of absolute pace, but he's enjoying himself. He's just having a good race. And Danlord and Tegiswan, look at that gap, has come down to about 7.6 seconds now. So Tegiswan is catching Danlord for that first position in the Group 3 class. Fierce B about a minute behind Tegiswan. And I think this is not turning out to be a good race for him. Cape Crusader at the end about 20 seconds behind Fierce B and about 12 minutes behind Pratik Benya on the actual track. But that's understandable. I mean, Pratik Benya with the faster machinery in the Group 1 class, he's obviously going to be much faster. But yeah, the gap between Pratik Benya and RKV is now consistent. I think Pratik Benya has realized, so he's pushing the car. He's not managing fuel or anything like that. He knows he has to get that position advantage, but don't discount RKV. He's as fast as they come, and he's going to be pushing that car as well, especially with no pit stop advantage that Pratik Benya has now. I'm not sure if RKV actually has realized that, but Pratik Benya is setting personal best sectors, RKV right by about 15 seconds behind him. So yeah, this is now a race to the end, with RKV having 10 seconds in the bank. So 10 seconds at the end of his race time will be removed. So effectively, right now, the gap between himself and Pratik Benya is about 5.2 seconds only. We'll just stay and look at everyone else. I'll talk to the drivers, let them know of what's going on, and I'll come back to you guys when I have an update. we're looking at Dan Lord right now, who's actually come into the pits, changed his tires as well. But I think Teggy Swan, who is right on the last chicane, the fourth chicane, he's on the main straight, and I think he should be able to overtake Dan Lord with the less amount of fuel that he has. The gap is down to about 3.4 seconds. Dan Lord has filled up. He is on a fresh set of tires, so that's going to make a difference as well. But for these guys, I think the fight is pretty much on. Again, Tegiswan now has that pit stop advantage. I think towards the end of the race, we can expect the position change to happen between these two guys. If they're able to calculate their fuel usage accordingly and get it filled up before the end of the race. So yeah, the Group 3 class is turning out to be interesting between Dan Lord and Tegiswan. And similarly, the Group 1 class between Pratik Benya and RKV. Look at that gap. It's now down to just 7.1 seconds. RKV has that 1.9 second penalty, but he'll serve that throughout this lap and before the first chicane. So effectively, RKV is now 3 seconds in front of Pratik Benya. This has been a huge turnout because Pratik Benya has been leading this race since since the second lap. But because he's been managing fuel and I think he has been making a few mistakes here and there, the fuel level is consistent between those guys. But Pratik Benya is slower out onto the track. He's at least 4 to 5 seconds on an average slower than RKV, but RKV again making those small mistakes, getting penalties, which he has to serve on the Mulsanne straight. So that eats up a lot of time. That takes up a lot of time as well for him. But again, just to remind you, RKV has 10 seconds in the bank because of a late release. So effectively, he is now about 3.9 seconds in front of Pratik Benya because that time will be taken out of his final race time. Let's just stay with RKV. I'm also in constant contact with the drivers as well. We actually could not get the commentary team that we had planned with Ashish and Shibi because of some technical issues. I think OBS is not playing well with our communication softwares. But again, it's just me for now, talking to the drivers, getting everything sorted, acting as the steward and acting as the commentator as well. So I'll just go back to the drivers, give them another update, letting them know it's about 44 minutes remaining. And in the meantime, you guys can enjoy the look at RKV driving. So he will, I think he will stop and serve that penalty. Look, he does that because all drivers have been instructed to stop before the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight and serve any penalties that they have. The gap to Zolo and RKV is now 43 seconds. At one point, Zolo was actually in front of RKV by about 20 seconds or so. So I think Zolo has not been having a good race. Nikhil just 29 seconds behind Zolo with about 25% fuel remaining, so I think that will come into play at the end of the race. The Wildest Monk about a minute behind Nikhil. Fun Anywhere about a minute something behind Wildest Monk. Shami about 2 minutes 46 seconds behind Fun Anywhere. So these guys are having a race of their own, just enjoying themselves. And Tegiswan has actually overtaken Dan Lord. So the Group 3 position has changed. Dan Lord is now in second position, and Tegiswan, who actually got disconnected in the first race, in which he was actually leading. So he comes back and takes the first position, which was rightfully his, to get that cash prize. But Dan Lord will not be discouraged. He's in second position. He'll be getting a cash prize as well. Fierce B and Cape Crusader about 50 seconds, the gap between Fierce B and Dan Lord, and 43 seconds between Fierce B and Cape Crusader. So yeah, these guys are having a whole different race, just trying to enjoy themselves. It's the first event of this kind for a lot of drivers, so I think there's going to be a lot of experience in the bag for these guys as well. You know, a long term driving, staying on the track, maintaining your strategies as well. Um, let's go back to Pratik Benya and RKV. The gap is consistent at about 7.8 seconds. We'll just stay with these guys. Pratik Benya is lapping at 325s. RKV is lapping at 321s. So yeah, I think RKV is. I think RKV has made a mistake somewhere because the gap has gone up. But again, RKV is getting those small penalties which he's serving on the Mulsanne straight, and that's not helping his cause at all. So you have to be very consistent in terms of the lines that you take. And every time you get a penalty, you have to stop and serve that before the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight. But all the pit advantage that Pratik Benya had has gone away anyway. So RKV and Pratik Benya are going to be locking horns for that first position. And as things stand, RKV with that 10-second in the bank, effectively he's about 2 seconds in front of Pratik Benya when the final race times are added. So watch out for these guys. The position shift is going to happen pretty soon. We already see that happening for the Group 3 class for Tegiswan, who actually started 45 seconds after Dan Lord. So yeah, I'm sure the racers will have some questions or some doubts with regards to the start position that these guys had. We'll obviously take a look at it at the end of the race, and we'll release a final verdict from the stewards within the next 24 to 48 hours. But this is turning out to be an interesting race. RKV is constantly getting that gap down. Look at that. He's just set a purple sector again. So he actually logged 4 seconds on that last lap. Obviously, Pratik Benya and Pratik Benya actually gained about 3 seconds on the last lap as well. So yeah, that's the reason the gap is pretty consistent. But RKV is constantly much faster than Pratik Benya throughout all the laps combined. So I think probably in the next 10 to 15 minutes, I think we can see these two guys duel for position as well. Going back into the field, Zolo about 43 seconds behind RKV. Nikhil again 32 seconds behind Solo. So these guys are in a whole different race altogether. Wildest Monk is just out there having fun. Because he could not participate in the last race, he will have no effect whatsoever on the positions. So he will be taken out of the race standings at the end. And Fun Anywhere and Shami, who had a huge gap. And the reason they had that huge gap in the first race is because of the turn one incident between Shami and Fun Anywhere, where Fun Anywhere went into the back of him, spinning Shami out of the track. And by the time he came in, the Group 3 cars were already in full swing. So he got tangled between the Group 3 cars as well and just couldn't get out. So yeah, he lost a lot of time at the start of the first race. So yeah, it's good for him. He's back. He's just racing, having fun. Tegiswan, who is about 12 minutes behind Pratik Benya, which is obviously expected for the Group 3 class because these guys are a little slower. Look at that. While Pratik Benya is almost starting lap number 24, the Group 3 class for Tegiswan is still on lap number 20. So this is the difference between the Group 1 and the Group 3 cars. I'll just talk to the drivers again, let them know about the time remaining, and you guys can enjoy the stream. Hello, everyone. So the gap between RKV and Pratik Benya is now down to 4.6 seconds, 4.7 seconds. RKV, I know he's pushing that car to its absolute limits. He did best lap, assist lap of a 320.3, which was his last lap as well. And Pratik Benya is about at least a couple of seconds slower than RKV at this stage. Uh, I think with the same amount of fuel and tire wear, these guys are now locked in that battle. RKV, while he has that 10-second advantage, I think he would just want to get that track position and finish before Pratik Benya does, just to eliminate all doubts. But to remind our viewers, RKV has 10 seconds in the bank. So effectively, right now, he is about 5.7, 5.6 seconds in front of Pratik Benya, because 10 seconds will be taken out of RKV's total race time at the end. Having said that, RKV is not waiting for that. I think both of these guys are going to jump straight in the pits. Whoever does not change his tires will have track position, will come out at least 5 seconds early. But with the worn out tires, it's going to be difficult to maintain that position. So let's just take a look at Pratik Benya. Scar is coming in. It looks like he is not changing his tires. So I think, and RKV is changing his tires. And look at that 4.5 second penalty. I'm not even sure where that happened. So RKV is changing his tires, and this works out pretty well for Pratik Benya, because he's just going to fill up fuel and leave on the same set of tires. He'll get that additional 5-second advantage to RKV, and RKV has to serve that 4.5-second penalty as well. So the gap will be again about 10 seconds between those guys. Look at that. So a 10-second gap right now, and once RKV starts serving that penalty, that gap is going to go up as well. So all the good work that RKV did in trying to catch up to Pratik Benya, all of that now goes away, but RKV has a fresh set of tires. And for this stint, I think, especially in the last sector where you have a lot of twists and turns, RKV is going to have a lot of advantage. See, already with that fresh set of tires, he is chewing a gap between himself and Pratik. But look at that, he has a 4.4 second penalty that is going to serve in about a few seconds from now, and the gap is just going to increase. All the good work that RKV has been doing, and quite frankly, this has been like an Achilles heel of RKV as well, because he's getting a lot of penalties, a lot of them. And every time he tries to push that car, he gets some form of penalty, and it just makes him lose track position. But it looks like he hasn't lost as much to Pratik Benya, because the gap is now 12.8 seconds. I think about 4 seconds that he lost out on. But with the fresh set of tires, we can expect that gap to come down again. 33 minutes remaining until the end of this race. Let's go back to the Group 3 guys as well. And there has been a position change again between Dan Lord and Tegiswan, but Tegiswan has that pit stop advantage, which I think he has to be. Which makes him comfortably go into first position again, because Dan Lord is probably going to pit in the next 2 to 3 laps. But again, because the race is ending now, these guys have to measure how much fuel they're going to be needing and fill up accordingly, because if you overfuel and lose time in the pits, it just takes away from your race positioning. And this has been an amazing race with 2 different car classes out onto the same track. This is not something that we have done before, and I don't think this is something that anyone has done before. We started with about 14 participants. A few of them could not make it final race, and a few of them, I think, Adit, who is Atomic Sunshine, and Azim Clark, these guys could not make it to the second race, which is the one that you're looking at. And Azim was comfortably in second position for the Group 3 class. So I think the gap between Tegiswan and Dan Lord could have been much, much higher if Azim was there. But since he's not, I think Tegiswan has that advantage as well. Fierceby and K Crusader in the Group 3 class, I think they're having a race of their own, but they're enjoying themselves. It's not every day that you have a race like this. Most of our esport races are single makes or single class races on the same track, so everybody's pretty much on the same machinery. Even here on the Group One and the Group Three classes, the drivers are in the same machinery for each class. No power or weight differences. All of that has been kept constant and constantly monitored by the race stewards as well. So anybody who makes changes to the power or weight settings of their car is automatically going to get disqualified. Um, let's go back to Pratik Benya and RKV. So that gap is now down to 11 seconds, but RKV lost a lot of time in that out lap, and I think that's where he lost. And look at that, Pratik Benya has a 1 second penalty as well, so he has to serve it before the PlayStation chicane, which is the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight. So that will give some respite to RKV because we'll see that timer come down. We're just hoping, let's just hope that Pratik Benya actually serves it. Yes, he does, because the drivers know that if they do not serve it, 30 seconds will be added to their race time for each infraction, and the stewards can actually call them in for a stop and go penalty. The same thing happened to Azim Clark in the last race as well, and made him lose a lot of positions. So the gap is now down to 10 seconds with the same amount, almost the same amount. I think Pratik Benya is still managing his fuel a little bit, and with 30 minutes remaining, these guys have a lot to do right now. Let's ignore the PlayStation notifications for now. But again, coming back to the Group 3 class between Dan Lord and Tegiswan, the gap is now down to 4 seconds, with Tegiswan actually holding an advantage in terms of the pit stop. And Fun Anywhere is now trying to overtake Tegiswan on I think it's on the second chicane. Yeah. Oh, he gets a little too close for comfort there. But these guys have been pretty well behaved when it comes to the multi-class racing, and a lot of overtakes happening between the faster cars and the smaller ones as well. So 3.8 second gap between Dan Lord and Tegiswan. Tegiswan having that pit stop advantage, I think he will comfortably move into first position by the time the race ends. And Fun Anywhere is now overtaking Dan Lord as well. Let's go back up to our Group 1 leaders. The gap is now down to 9.4 seconds between Pratik Benya and RKV. And the time that RKV has in hand, the 10 seconds, that puts him ahead of Pratik. And I think Pratik made a mistake there. Or was that a glitch? I think he just ran a little wide onto the grass, but he caught it. Maybe a lapse in concentration. But yeah, Pratik Benya has been informed that RKV has a 10-second advantage over him in terms of the final race time. So he'll have to start pushing as much as he can right now. RKV is just behind him. I'll go back to the drivers, give them a quick update, and I'll be back with you guys shortly. So Pratik Benya has started to make a few mistakes. He's getting those penalties and getting rid of it. And look at that, the gap between RKB and Pratik Benya is now just over 6 seconds. They have been informed about the time buffer that RKB has, the 10 seconds that will be removed from his final race time. So Pratik Benya has to start pushing now. Uh, he's about 2.3 seconds behind his fastest lap on this sector. It's not really going well for him, is it? Because he did not change tires in the previous stint. And RKB with that fresh set of tires, he's constantly catching Pratik Benya. And I think probably by the end of this lap, I think he's going to be fairly close to him. We're looking at Pratik Benya just in the background. You see RKB, and I think Pratik Benya will see that now as well in his rearview mirror. Fiersby got disconnected from the room, and unfortunately, he will not be able to join back in. Tegiswan has now overtaken Dan Lord. Dan Lord, who still has that pit deficiency. He's running low on fuel. He has to go into the pits now. And Tegiswan is on a half tank of fuel right now. And look at that group 3 cars coming into play. And I think that's the car of Shami trying to overtake these guys and trying to make a clean move as well. So all in all, the racers have been well behaved in terms of letting the faster cars by. And it goes without saying for the faster cars as well. They're well behaved when it comes to overtaking people. And as you saw there, Cape Crusader going a little bit wide. Let's jump back to Pratik Benya and RKB. So the gap is now just above 5 seconds. And it's down to now 4.8 seconds, because RKB with that extra bit of tire tread, if I should say, the fresher set of tires, he's going to have that advantage in the corners. And Pratik Benya and RKB are locked in terms of the pit stop advantage. So there's no advantage here. They both have almost the same level of fuel. But look at that, RKB making those mistakes again. The 2.5 second penalty that he has to get rid of, and he's brought the gap down to about 3.6 seconds. He'll probably bring it down to about 2 seconds by the end of this sector, but he is going to have to stop to serve the penalty, and the distance just vanishes again. Pratik Benya has been fairly consistent. He's not been getting many penalties, but he has been consistently doing 325s. RKB consistently doing 321s and 22s. Yeah, he's obviously catching up to Pratik Benya. The gap is now down to 3.2 seconds, and it's falling even as I say it. So, yeah, it's going to come down to about 2.9 seconds or so. But then RKB has to stop and serve that 2.8 second penalty. Let's look at that. It's about just 3 seconds, and RKB has to brake. He has to serve that penalty before going into the chicane. And I think he's playing with that rule just a little bit, because the rules were clear that you could not enter the chicane with any penalty. We'll have a talk about that at the end of the race. But see, look at the gap again. It's about 5.3 seconds between RKB and Pratik Benya once again. So RKB obviously much faster than Pratik out on the track, but he's getting those silly penalties. He's making those mistakes, and the time difference just keeps climbing after he's serving all of those penalties. Let's go back to Tegiswan and Dan Lord. I think they were fairly close to each other, but yeah, Dan Lord pitted, and he's come out with about half a tank of fuel, about 23 seconds behind Tegiswan. So they're now almost locked in. I think Dan Lord has a 1 lap advantage. I think this is going to come into play towards the end of the race, because the one who can actually calculate his fuel usage accordingly and get into the pits and spend as less time as he possibly can is the one who's going to have track advantage. Not just between these two guys, but between Pratik Benya and RKB as well. If you remember the last time out when Pratik Benya went into the pits, he did not change tires, and that's the reason he loses out a lot of time in the corners, especially in the last sector and the first sector as well. So RKV constantly getting that gap down because of the fresh set of tires. But also, let's also give a huge shout out to Zolo. Uh, about 48 seconds behind RKV, he's still there. He's having fun. He's racing. He's enjoying himself. Nikhil about 33 seconds behind Zolo. The Wildest Monk, whose participation in the first race could not happen because of some personal reasons. He is here, but his track position will not be considered at the end of the race. Fun Anywhere about 1 minute 44 seconds behind the Wildest Monk, and Shami about 2 minutes 20 seconds behind Fun Anywhere. Remember, Shami actually started uh, after going one lap down from Fun Anywhere. And even Shami will not have a say on the final race positions because effectively he was about 10 minutes behind everyone else. So he was willing to let go of that time difference just to have a race and not to wait too long into the pits. But he has also let go of any chance of scoring a decent position in this race. So he's probably going to finish seventh, uh, unless somebody disconnects in the Group One category. And speaking of the leaders, it's about 3.2 seconds between Pratik and RKV now. Pratik with just that little bit of extra fuel. Let's just go on board RKV into the cockpit view and enjoy as he drives and tries to catch up to Pratik Benya. If you look onto the left side of your screen where the names are, you see that red number with the red background. That's the gap between the leader and the current guy we're looking at. So in this case, between RKV and Pratik Benya, it's about 2.6 seconds, 2.5 seconds now, 2.4. Watch that gap come down and go up as these guys go through different sections, because obviously RKV is faster in some sections and slower in some. Pratik Benya is very consistent throughout. So it's going to be interesting to see when RKV actually catches Pratik Benya, because he's run a phenomenal race, if I can say that. If there was a vote for driver of the day, I think it's going to be a close tie between RKV and I mean, to a certain extent, I think it's going to be Shami as well, because he actually did unlap himself to Wildest Monk and let him know in the chat as well. But let's just stay on board RKV on his Group 1 machinery, the Toyota TS050 Hybrid Le Mans car, and 2.2 seconds between Pratik Benya and RKV. And you'll see, going into corners and coming out, if RKV can maintain that consistency, you'll see that gap keep coming down. Look at that, it's now about 1.9 seconds. And once we pass Indianapolis, I think the gap is going to come down significantly towards the end of the lap as well, in the final sector, where RKV will have a huge advantage over Pratik in terms of the tire wear. So we'll just stay on board RKV while he hunts Pratik Benya. Pratik Benya has just made a mistake. I did not realize it. I was looking at the time difference and I think it updated late on my screen. But Pratik Benya has made a mistake. He is now 15 seconds behind RKV with a damaged car. Oh, this is not going well for him. He should have changed his tires. I think he's going to be kicking himself because he did not change tires in the last stint. This has now put RKV firmly in P1 until the end of the race. This is going to be an interesting one because now all that advantage that Pratik Benya had in terms of his consistency, he's still in second position. The gap between himself and Zolo is 49 seconds, so he'll definitely get some part of that prize money. But RKV, what a brilliant drive he's had. Not giving up, not making many mistakes, at least race-ending mistakes like Pratik Benya just did. This just went from bad to worse for him, being losing out so much time to RKV and then just going off track. We have about 17 minutes remaining now. Anything can happen during that time. I'll just let the drivers know about what's happening, and I'll be joining you guys back soon. All right, viewers. So 10 more minutes at until the end of this race, and for the Group 3 category, Tegiswan is now leading with about a 6-second gap between himself and Dan Lord. I think Tegiswan made a mistake that we got on stream, but I was talking to the drivers on Discord. So Tegiswan is set to take first position. I think he has the fuel to go until the end of this race. Same goes for Dan Lord. I think he's comfortably in second position. Cape Crusader about 1 minute 42 seconds behind these guys. Uh, Enjoying himself, having a good race. Uh, and our KV is now 30 seconds ahead of Pratik Benya. And Pratik Benya, I think both of these guys will go into the pits now for the final time. And Pratik Benya, I think in the last stop where he did not change his tires to gain track advantage, I think uh, that ended his hope of having first position because RKV was so much faster on the fresh set of tires. Zolo about 42 seconds behind Pratik Benya, but remember, Pratik Benya will have a 30-second penalty added to his race time at the end for not serving his penalty before the first chicane. Nikhil about 43 seconds behind Zolo. The Wildest Monk about 1 minute 48 seconds behind. And Fun Anywhere a lap down, about 4 minutes behind RKV and 1 minute 11 seconds behind the Wildest Monk. Shami having a decent race out on his own, about 2 minutes 21 seconds behind Fun Anywhere. Oh, he's about 1 minute 54 seconds behind Fun Anywhere. I think the time got updated when he passed the pit lane because Fun Anywhere had gone into the pits. So our leader for the Group 1 category, RKV, comes into the pits. I think Pratik Benya is going to come into the pits as well because he does not have any fuel remaining. So from now on, it's going to be a quick splash and dash until the end of the race for all of these guys, whoever comes into the pits. RKV, we can see like getting some fuel into his car. So he does not have to fill up so much. I think they're going to be doing 2 more laps, not about 2 more laps on this one. Pratik Benya comes into the pits as well. Zolo, I think he has fuel. I think he's counting on the fact that RKV is going to finish ahead just to keep position. Nikhil also has fuel. The Wildest Monk. Fun Anywhere has fuel to finish the race as well. Same goes for Shami, for Tegiswan, for Dan Lord, and I think Cape Crusader has to probably come into the pits at the end of either this lap or the next one. But as things stand, all of these guys are now fueled up until the end of the race. The Group 1 leader, RKV, who's had a brilliant drive on this track, on this race, and on the previous race as well. Pratik Benya, who had a commanding lead, I think made a few poor strategy decisions that enabled RKV to catch up to him, and the mistake that Pratik made, I think at the end of the, I think on the Mulsan corner, he just went wide into the wall, got damaged, and just could not get out. Yeah, and for the Group 3 category, Tegiswan is leading the Group 3 category, so he's going to be winning that cash prize. Dan Lord is going to win second position, and he's going to win a cash prize as well. Remember, there's a cash prize for the first and second position for each class. So there's going to be a straight victory for RKV here, and probably a straight victory for Tegiswan. About 5.5 minutes remaining for these guys. So we'll just stay with RKV because the timer over here and RKV's relative position on track will let us know when the final lap is. So the King of Le Mans race, which has, like, I think it's been in the making for about a month now. We could have done it sooner, but with all the esport events from Volkswagen and Toyota, the drivers just could not find any time. But we are here. We're finally getting it done. RKV is in first position for the Group 1 category, and Pratik Benya is in the second position for the Group 1 category, who obviously has a 30-second penalty. So I'm not too sure if able to carve that gap out. So might just get uh, Zolo might just win this, win the second position. I mean, not the actual race, but the duel between Pratik and himself. So yeah, Pratik Benya has to carve out at least 9 more seconds because he's going to get that 30-second added to his race time at the end. So all the guys have now filled up. Tegi Swan is here as well. Let's just go back on board to RKV, who is finishing this lap. So I think, yeah, so 4 more minutes remaining. So I think once he crosses the finish line again, that is where his final lap begins, unless he actually slows down and lets the timer run out. But I don't think he's going to do that. These guys are fairly cautious in terms of penalties that are going to be added at the end of the race. And because this has been a very, very long race, the penalties are actually higher as well. So I'm sure the drivers will be reporting any incidents that happened out on the track. We're staying on board with Shami. 3.5 minutes remaining until the end of the race. 31 seconds between himself and Pratik Benya. Pratik Benya and Solo are 20 seconds apart. But remember, Pratik Benya will have a uh, 30-second penalty added to his time, but looks like Zolo has gone into the pits. So I think Pratik Benya should be able to keep second position, but it doesn't look like he has enough fuel, to be really honest. Uh, it's going to be touch and go for him. Zolo coming out 34 seconds behind Pratik Benya. So even with the 30-second penalty added to Pratik Benya's time at the end, he should be able to comfortably make second. But I'm looking at his fuel bar, and doesn't it doesn't really look that good for him. Uh, so once RKV crosses the line, that's when the final lap begins for these guys. So I'm not really sure how the game is going to treat it. If RKV crosses the line and Pratik Benya then does it, I think that might be the final lap for him. And in that situation, I think Pratik Benya might be saved, but I think he's under fueled here. I think he has. So if the race goes on for one more lap, Pratik Benya is going to be in trouble. He's going to be in massive trouble. So we'll just keep cycling through all the guys, just taking a look at the gaps that they have. Obviously, there's not much in terms of pit stops and fuel anymore. These guys will be finishing on the same tank of fuel. But Pratik Benya, I'm not entirely sure about him. 1 minute 40 seconds remain. RKV is leading the pack. He has that 1 second penalty, but I think he'll be able to get rid of that pretty soon. So yeah, he does get rid of that penalty. So yeah, RKV about 33 seconds in front of Pratik Benya, who I think has realized that he's low on fuel, so he's managing this. We'll stay on board with RKV when he crosses the finish line at the end of this race. About 1 minute 10 seconds to go. RKV is already in the final sector. So yeah, I think RKV, if he really wants to, he can wait at the finish line, just wait for the timer to go down because he has that 30-second gap between himself and Pratik. And if he does that, I think he will save Pratik Benya's blushes as well because Pratik Benya looks like he has underfueled. So coming up to the final chicane, RKV is going to win the Group 1 class. He does decide to go out for one more lap. Pratik Benya, we still have about 30 seconds remaining, so we'll stay on with Pratik Benya just to see if he gets that final lap uh, coming before the timer runs out, because it doesn't look like he has any fuel. So he's probably going to go. It doesn't look like he's going into the pits. So 30 seconds between himself and Zolo. Pratik Benya is just going to wait it out at the end of this chicane. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we have the final lap for RKV, and Pratik Benya does finish at least 41 seconds behind RKV. We look at Zolo, who is 33 seconds behind Pratik Benya. But remember, Pratik actually slowed down at the end, so the game will catch up to the time that Pratik set. Look at that; it's now down to 31 seconds. It's probably coming down to 30 seconds, 29, 28, 20, 31 seconds between Solo and Pratik. Uh, let's go back to the Group 1 class as well. So Tegi Swan, or Tegi Swan, is barely running on fumes, and he comes in to take first position on the Group 3 class. His race is now done. Dan Lord, about 11 seconds behind him, is going to take second position for the Group 3 class. He goes a little bit wide, but he takes second position. RKV is still running his race. He's comfortably in first. Nobody's going to take that away from him. Pratik Benya, Solo, Nikhil, Wildest Monk is on here. Fun Anywhere, a lap down. He gets to finish the race. Shami, uh, who I think yeah, he's still a little far behind, so it's going to be the final lap for him as well. Tegi Swan winning the Group 3 class. Dan Lord coming in second, and Cape Crusader is going to finish this lap as well. Let's look at the gap between RKV and Pratik Benya. It's about 41 seconds at the end of the last lap, and 31.1 seconds between Pratik and Zolo. So Pratik, who has that 30-second time penalty to be added at the end of this race, he barely makes it out to second position on the Group 1 class. So we have our winners. RKV winning the Group 1 class. He is the king of Le Mans on this one. Pratik Benya coming second, 41 seconds behind him. Zolo in third, 31 seconds behind Pratik Benya. Nikhil, 26 seconds behind Zolo. The Wildest Monk, who's still running, is about a minute and 25 seconds behind Nikhil. Fun Anywhere, who's at least a lap down from these guys. Shami, about a minute 51 seconds behind Fun Anywhere. Tegi Swan, who is the king of Le Mans for the Group 3 class. Dan Lord, 12 seconds behind him. And Cape Crusader just coming up to the final sector. Let's go back on board to RKV, who just crosses the finish line. And Cape Crusader just is the last chicane and comes to the finish line as well. This has been an amazing race to look at, and it has been a wonderful drive from this guy right here, RKV, who is definitely the king of Le Mans. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. Thank you so much for all the viewers, to all the racers, to making this event a huge success. We'll be back again soon with a new track, new car classes, and some exciting new races. Until then, subscribe to the channel, stay up to date with all the esport activities that go around. And if you aren't a part of our WhatsApp and Instagram communities, just go on to Instagram, search for SimNation India. You will find us there and join us. Thank you so much.